Hey everybody, welcome back to the Crave Show. This is JRuss, and as always, Chris. And we have this week our special guest, Jeanette Lefkowitz. Jeanette's got a little kiddo in her domicile, so she's here recording with me in the trailer park ghetto studio that I've got going. And happily, there's two of us in the same place today. So, welcome back to the show. We're going to get Jeanette to entertain us.
Okay.
What's the right word?
No pressure, Jeanette. Just entertain us. Make us smile and laugh and keep us happy. No pressure.
Cool. So let's see. Normally, when we have someone on, we start with a little bio information, which is just everything that you want to tell us about yourself to get started.
So I made my first jump in November 2000, and then was hooked, but I didn't have any money, so I waited a year, and I was also living in Chicago, so I had to wait for a year in summer. So then I got my license in 2001, and I just really enjoyed it, and I got into four-way, and then that kind of took on its own life. So it was just me. My then boyfriend wasn't interested at all at the time. So whenever he wasn't visiting, we waited to live in the same town. So when he wasn't visiting, I would go out to the drop zone and slowly would get on a team. It was terrible until I went to the tunnel, and then I got a little bit better. But it was slow. And then I don't remember, but at some point he started skydiving, and then everything kind of changed for me. All of a sudden, all of our finances and time that I was constrained on were no longer. So then Steve and I formed Rhythm in 2006, the fall of 2006, and then 2007 was our first year. And and through that, it's just been great. We ended up quitting our jobs. We moved here to Skydive Chicago. We've had multiple teammates. We've kind of coached a lot. I've done about 11,000 skydives. We started the Women's Skydiving Network with my friend and teammate Christy Frickin. We won nationals. I got to be on the Golden Knights women's team. We went to the World Meet, and we won that when it was here in 2016. That was really cool. It's been fun.
So the boyfriend you were talking about a minute ago, that was Steve.
That was Steve. Yeah.
Okay. So for those of you that don't know, if you're listening, we had, it's been quite a while now. Mm-hmm. We had Steve Lefkowitz on the podcast, and now we have Jeanette, his lovely wife. So that's the boyfriend, now husband, that she was talking about. Yeah. So you were into skydiving before he was?
Yeah, I was, and I mean, it probably wouldn't surprise you about him, but he doesn't do anything unless he decides he wants to do it. So I was like, "This is really cool. You should do it." He's like, "No, I'm not interested." So he was like vehemently against it, and he'd come out to the drop zone with me sometimes and just be like, oh, when are we going to go? Really had no interest. And then actually my team had won some time in the tunnel in Orlando. I think it was maybe the only tunnel in the US at that time. And at that time you didn't buy, when you bought time, you got time from 8 a.m. to 8:15, straight. And that was it. You just had to deal with it. So we had this extra time, and we wanted to fly four-way, and then the time in between would just go to waste. So we were like, Steve, you got to get in. He's like, fine. If it's going to go to waste, I'll get in. So we kind of drug him into the tunnel. And then the next time it was a little bit easier. We were like, okay. And then finally by the third time, he was like, do you guys have any more tunnel time? And so then I remember sitting in Orlando with him and him looking at me. He's like, okay, I think I got to get my license now. Okay. Wow. He's like, but I'm not doing four-way. I was like, that's fine.
I'm not doing four-way.
Yeah.
Well, sure, so whatever, man.
It kind of went that way, and now he has way more jumps than I do, even. So.
Okay, I have to ask: do you remember who any of the instructors working at that Orlando tunnel at that time? Can you remember any of their names?
I probably did. So we were there at an airspeed camp, and I remember Kirk Verner was there, and Neil Houston, and I don't know that wasn't an airspeed camp. That was just. Yeah, I don't remember. I remember
about what
there.
So what year would that have been when you were dragging Steve over there and getting him in the tunnel?
That would have been 2004, winter of 2004.
And JRuss, what year was that you started jumping in the Orlando tunnel? I mean, jumping, you know what I'm saying? Flying in Orlando. That's like 01?
I was there with 28 skydives in 2002.
Oh, two. Okay. So a couple years before Jeanette was there.
Yeah. So she started jumping. Sounds like a couple years before I did. But I'm gonna guess my pace was a little bit quicker.
Yeah. You were a little freer maybe or something. Okay, well, hold on. Okay, this is very interesting to me. I want to hear more about this. But before we get into this too much, I do want to, JRuss, like I mentioned to you, I've got two listener. One is a comment from YouTube that I want to read, and then one is an email. And I'm like super excited about this email. Okay, so here's one of the comments. And this was both of these, this comment and the email is from our last episode, JRuss.
Okay.
So this is a comment. It's just the YouTube name. So I don't know if I'm saying it right. Akimicalis 8243. All right. He says, or he or she, I've listened to or watched every episode of Crave since the very first episode when I was an AFF student. I don't jump as much as I'd like just due to family and work responsibilities, but I absolutely love this podcast. And I've never once felt like I've wasted any of my hours of watching. I've learned an incredible amount about this fantastic sport thanks to you guys. I hope one day I'll have the honor of going on a jump with you guys, Blue Skies. That's just so awesome. Like I had to read that. So cool.
I don't know.
Because Chris's like sign off at the end of the podcast that I've disagreed with is, well, everybody, you did it again. You wasted a perfectly good hour. It's off of some other podcast, right?
Yeah, Car Talk.
Yeah.
And I'm always like, no, they didn't waste it. They learned something about skydiving. And so it's my turn this week. So I did the intro and I'll do the exit. And we did not waste.
Yeah. There you go.
That's awesome.
Okay, now, JRuss, listen to this email. This is so cool. All right. This is a guy named George Toe, I think Toh is his last name, Toe. He said, hello, Chris and JRuss. Love the show. I'm writing to say that I especially love the introduction of this week's Crave show about quantum entanglement. I do quantum physics research at Duke University where we entangle separate atoms using photons. If you find yourself in Durham, North Carolina, and have a few hours to spare, get in touch with me and I can give you a tour of our labs.
Dude,
right?
Isn't that so awesome?
Yes. And
dude, we've got a personal invitation.
Right, let's have that guy on the show.
That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
We have a personal invitation for a private tour of a quantum physics lab at Duke University. That is so awesome.
I'm in.
Dude, that would be so cool.
And I go to North Carolina sometimes. So that might be cooler than being invited on a world record jump. No, I'm just kidding. I mean, that's pretty awesome.
That's very cool. His name is George.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, George Toe is his name. I just thought that was so, when he emailed me, I was like, oh my gosh, what? No way.
Yeah, let's hang on to that because I would definitely go. And man, if we're both going to be there at the same time, that sounds like a win right there.
Dude, that would be cool.
It made me think about one of the guys that's local here that Jeanette has coached in the past and kind of worked with their team many times is Pete Eng. And he works in a lab in Batavia, maybe?
The accelerator, it's proton source.
Yeah, it's an accelerator that he works at. And we got a tour of that place.
He gives a great tour.
Yeah, it was super good. I was
like a particle accelerator?
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
Wow.
And it's got x-rays that come off of it. And I'm going to do a terrible explanation, I'm sure. But I think it's basically like a very big microscope because they can like shoot these x-rays at material and then understand the makeup of it on like a really, really tiny, molecular kind of level. Really, really cool. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's so cool.
And Joanne also works there with him.
Okay.
You know Joanne?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Anyway, two extremely smart people.
Well,
I just think that's so cool about the skydiving community. Because I have people, I talk to people and people who don't skydive and they say, oh yeah, just a bunch of adrenaline junkies, right? I'm like, no, absolutely not. There's people from every walk of life. Like you cannot even imagine. I just think it's so awesome.
Yeah.
It's so cool.
Yeah. When you get together with a bunch of skydivers, it's funny to look around at the crowd and think, man, what do I have in common with these people? Like, and then you finally realize I skydive and so do they.
Yeah, it's wild.
It's not smelling donkeys.
Yeah, like, I mean, I've jumped with doctors who are just like these brilliant minds. I've jumped with accountants, with lawyers, with, you know, guys who teach school. Like, it's just so cool. I just think it's so awesome.
Yeah, it is really cool.
Awesome. So, okay, sorry. Oh, also JRuss, he did send a link for the website, quantum.duke.edu. And I looked it up. It's really cool. It talks about their lab and some of the research they're doing and stuff. So if you want to check it out, quantum.duke.edu.
Excellent.
It's really cool. So, all right. I had to read those. I want to share that with you guys. Really I thought it was super exciting, really fun. So, all right, let's get back on track.
Okay, so back to Jeanette. So, Jeanette, I happen to know a little bit about your educational background, and I'd like you to talk about a little bit about where you and Steve met and what you studied and how that relates to skydiving.
Yeah, so we both went to MIT, and that's where I met him.
Speaking of smart people, oh my goodness.
Yeah, well, I don't know. We joke that they're going to come and take our degrees away at some point.
Hey, you guys weren't supposed to have these.
Yeah. Like, hold on a second. What are you calling engineering? I don't think so. But we both went to MIT. I grew up in Florida, and he grew up in the suburbs of New York City. We met junior year. I studied mechanical engineering, and he did chemical engineering. And we started dating in college. Then when we left college, we didn't move to the same place. He was kind of moving around with his job, and I was in Chicago, so we were kind of didn't want to do a long distance thing. But very quickly, it became obvious that there was no one more Steve than Steve for me. So he felt the same. So yeah. And we both did business consulting type stuff. He did more logistics stuff, and I was kind of IT and supply chain consulting. And then he eventually actually switched over to work at my company. We both worked at the same company until we quit our jobs. And then now we do this full time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah.
And you guys have a daughter.
And we do. We have a daughter. She's 3. She's awesome. Yeah. She's great.
Sage.
Yeah. Sage.
Tell us about her name.
So actually her full name is Sagan, from Carl Sagan.
Okay.
And her middle name's Ruth. It was just before she was born. Ruth Bader Ginsburg passed away, and I thought that was a nice way to honor her. So people joke, like, she's named after an astrophysicist and a Supreme Court justice, so there's no pressure on her at all.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
But she's great, and it was that's a whole story in its own. It was very. It was a long journey to get her. So when we finally did, and then when I was pregnant was also its own issues. But now she's here, and she's just wonderful. She's wonderful. She was telling me, so we were in Chicago, and we went to this like show. There were 2 parts of it. One was like was a space part, and one was a safari part. And the space part was really neat. It showed like, it was a 360 view, and so it showed like a rocket going to the moon, and then when you're on the moon, you could kind of make footsteps on the moon. It was neat to see that perspective of what it would look like to be on the moon, and the kind of the relief of the craters and the stars and all that stuff. She loved it, and as you walked around, you could make footprints. Maybe I said that already, but anyway, so we came back, and today she was like painting, and she picked. It's like an Earth with a little, like the silly crescent moon with the guy, and she was like, yeah, the rocket will go from here to there. And I was like, really? Like, she just on her own just told me that, and I was like, yeah, you're right. I mean, that is where the rocket went.
Astrophysicist.
It's really cool. It's cool to see, like, she's paying attention and really like interested. It's cool. She's so much fun. That's much fun. I feel like Steve and I had a lot of issues because we were older parents. So now I want to enjoy all of the benefits that you could have by being older parents, by not being in your 20s and having to work and work on your career, and you're working towards something. Like, we can be a little bit more deliberate and slow with her, and enjoy it. So
that's cool.
We're doing that.
Yeah.
So you said something about problems. or something? Is that something you want to talk about or
Sure.
not?
Yeah. We because we were focused on skydiving and the 4-way team and winning a world meet, and being a woman in a sport that's very male dominated, I always felt like, man, it's hard enough to just be a woman in this sport. I can't imagine also trying to start a family while I'm trying to do this.
Mm-hmm.
And I was always like, yeah, I wasn't against having kids, but I was okay with whatever was going to happen, when I was in my 30s, So we just waited and we kept waiting. And all the women in my family had kids at like 40. So I was like, I'll be fine, but I wasn't. So Doug got hurt right before I turned 40. And so we were like, okay, this seems like a good time. I can get pregnant now. I'll give birth. Doug and I will both be back at the same time. It'll work out perfect. I'm very much a planner like that. But it didn't go that way. And so so we ended up having to do many rounds of IVF and fertility treatments. I did 6 egg retrievals and 4, the retrieval is where you give yourself all these drugs, like injections and all kinds of stuff. And then at the end, they have a surgery and they take out as many eggs as they can. And then from there, it's really kind of an amazing like biology type thing, but they can test those eggs to see if they have the right number of chromosomes. And that was my problem, is that because of my age, they didn't have the right number of chromosomes. So like I could get pregnant, but I just couldn't keep a baby because the chromosomes were bad. So they could test them and find ones that were good. It took me 6 of those to find good ones. And then I did 4 transfers where they put the eggs back in before it actually worked and we got Sage. So that was a lot of...
Okay.
Yeah.
You're saying they take eggs out of you.
Yeah.
And then they test those eggs and they can tell if those are basically viable. I mean,
yeah. So
if they have the correct number of chromosomes, then if they do, they fertilize them first and put them back in you, or they put them in you and...
Yeah. So
this is just...
So they take them out and then they fertilize them with Steve's cells as well. And then they grow them in the lab. And so, and every few days it kind of drops off, so you end up with like, I would start with, they would get someone from like 12 to 24 eggs from me, which is really good for a woman in her 40s, apparently. But then by the time we got to the point where they would be fertilized and grow to like day 5 or day 6, we'd end up with 4 to 8 that they would then take. And then at that point, it's like 100 to 200 cells. So they can just take a few of cells and not do significant damage to the embryo at that point. And then they can test those few cells and tell you whether... I mean, it's amazing, right? Like,
dude, that's insane.
It is. It's crazy. So I remember actually, like, after that 5th cycle and it kind of, we'd gotten a little bit of stuff that we could try here and there, but nothing really, like, I'd gotten to a point where it was just not, it seemed like a dead end, and I think Steve was like, you know what, this isn't going to work, and we need to look at different options, either adopting a child or an egg donor or things like that. And I was just like, man, I really want to I just want one more chance, one more try, And then so we did the 6th of that whole cycle, and in that one we got 3 eggs that were genetically good. Before that it was like nothing, and then all of a sudden 3 were, and one of them Sage. So
wow,
it was it was great. I still I get emotional thinking about that call.
That's amazing. I mean, that's a miracle.
Yeah, it was great.
So, I mean, do you, and if you don't want to get into this, I totally understand, but I mean, just, it sounds like that's, and you kind of hinted at it, like somewhat of an emotional roller coaster. I mean,
it is. I mean, it's, there's definitely like a gambling type aspect to it too, because and it's emotional because it takes like weeks or months to prepare, and you're injecting yourself with hormones for weeks, and then you go through this whole process, and then you have the surgery and they take out the eggs and you come to, you're under anesthesia, you come to, and you find out how many eggs did they get. So that's its own kind of roller coaster. And then you have to wait a few weeks, where you wait 5 days to see how many made it to, how many made it to day 5. And then then they get sent off for testing, and then you wait 5 weeks, 2 weeks then to find out they're all bad or 2 are good. You know what I mean? It's just, it's like just wait and then wait and then wait and then wait. And then in the meantime, I think I did very well compared to other women. I felt very lucky that, you're injecting yourself with hormones. So even if there's not something important on the line, it's tricky. I think my body dealt with it well compared to what I've heard other women had to go through, but still it's tough, And at the same time we were training and trying to win a nationals too. So.
Wow. It's almost like at every step of the way you're finding out again if you're still pregnant.
Yeah.
Kind of like.
Yeah, for sure. And honestly, when we finally did get pregnant, it felt like that. I felt like Steve and I, like you transfer and then you wait a few weeks and then you find out if it worked, and then you wait for I think most women get pregnant and they go to the doctor. They just go because it's something you have to do. But for us at that point, it just felt like, okay, the next time you go to the doctor is when you're going to find out you got to start all over again,
Wow.
So it was, I know a ton of women go through this too. And I feel fortunate too that I get to, I think in a lot of women feel reluctant to talk about it, especially if they're working in an industry where they feel like they might be, punished, in their job for the time that it's going to take and things like that. So I think it's cool that I can talk about it, and I feel comfortable, doing that stuff. So yeah. And that I had the resources available that that I had the support from Steve, and we were able to go do this. I feel very fortunate. And I got Sage, and she's amazing.
That's cool. Yeah. Well, and that's probably for some people. Maybe for you guys too. Just the financial aspect of it, like that's a big. I'm guessing. I don't know that much, but I'm assuming it's not cheap. And so then you're like, and people's personalities. But if you're, some people are going to think more practically and more frugally and be like, what are we doing? Do we keep putting money into it? I don't know. I'm just imagining it's a lot to deal with.
Absolutely. And that's where like the gambling aspect, because it comes up because you're like, it didn't work, but maybe next time, maybe I could just find this and,
Wow.
And you could, it's a journey.
Well, that's so awesome that you have Sage, you have your daughter. That's very cool.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
It's okay.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I just wrote a question down on the paper because it's a little bit sensitive, but Jeanette and Steve went through some pretty incredible difficulties during the pregnancy.
Yeah.
I'm not sure.
Yeah.
We could chat about that. Specifically, I was curious if you felt like it was the hormones and the process that created that difficulty.
Yeah. So what you're talking about is, this happened, the whole beginning of the pregnancy, Steve and I were very like, we don't know, like, should we even buy anything? It's like, I remember going into a Target and I was like, maybe we should buy a onesie for the baby. He's like, I don't know if we should do that yet. I don't know if we're ready and I don't want to jinx it. And we don't believe any of that. But anyway, we got to a point where we were like, okay, this is actually happening. I was still working a little bit at the tunnel, and because I was doing some work at the Chicago tunnel, I didn't really want to be public about the fact that I was pregnant because I didn't want someone else to tell me whether I could work or not. I wanted to decide for myself. Anyway, so I was kind of quiet about it, and then I was 27 weeks pregnant, and I was working at tunnel camp in Paraclete, and I got sick, and I was just like, at that point, I thought it was just a pregnancy, and I was like, okay. But then that week, it got a lot worse, and then there was a moment that it just really, my vision and my balance just went right away. Like my eyes were doing this, and everything was spinning to me. I thought it was pregnancy related. It turned out it was I have a cerebral cavernous malformation, or a cavernoma, which is a very rare condition. It's like a clump of capillaries that happened to be in my cerebellum that bled when I was 27 weeks pregnant. So I asked, I was like, is this related to, IVF? Is it related to getting kicked in the head a lot, been 4-way? Like what, is it? Some doctors said that, yeah, maybe IVF is involved, but honestly, like, I don't know. I mean, I'd been through many years of taking all of these hormones, and now I hadn't been taking hormones for, it was probably the longest stretch of time in the last couple of years that I hadn't. I don't know. I think there's no good information on it because there's just not a lot of data in it.
And your cerebellum is muscles and coordination, is that right?
It's like right at the base of your, like there's your brain, and it's this little bit in here, and it's all the like very rudimentary stuff, like your balance, your vision, your hearing, swallowing, breathing, like all the stuff that you just kind of
the reptile part.
yeah, the stuff you take for granted, and and so mine damaged my vision and my balance, so that happened. It was April 1st, and Steve took me to the OB, who put me in an ambulance to the hospital, and then the hospital put me in a helicopter to Orlando, and I spent about, I think, like 10 days in the neuro ICU there, where they discussed what they wanted to do because I was pregnant and I needed the surgery. I think that, like, Steve is amazing to have on your team, and at the forward team, but in this respect in my medical team, and like he got so many opinions. The doctor there told me, like, if you weren't pregnant, we'd be operating on Thursday, which I think is probably not what I would not have been the right thing to do. What I ended up doing was I saw a number of doctors. I ended up going with the recommendation to wait, to not have surgery on it. So I just waited. I did PT. I couldn't stand, like right afterwards. I couldn't.
But I'm correct. Yeah. You woke up like blind.
Not blind, but just like everything was spinning.
Okay.
So like if I closed one eye, it got a little bit better, but like everything was spinning. I was always aware, and I could always see at all the times. I was very nauseous. I lost about like 15 to 20 pounds that time. I was, it's funny, like things you worry about when you get pregnant. You're like, oh, I'm going to gain all this weight, and I got to lose it all. That was not.
Like how common is this condition?
So I think like 1 in 500 or something, like, people have it, but most of them don't bleed. It's just like a malformation of capillaries, and so it might happen to everybody, and most people's never bleed. And then when they do bleed, sometimes they only bleed once. I couldn't really get a straight answer on how often, but that was the reason why we said let's wait, because if this is the kind of thing that only bleeds once, surgery, from what I understood, surgery wouldn't make it better. It would just keep it from happening again. And so, like, especially because it was so deep in my brain, they said let's just wait and see, because if it never bleeds again, that would be better than having this like super invasive surgery. So that's what we did, and I slowly got better. I got to where I could walk and run and drive again. And then a year later, it bled again, not as severely. And so, like, I was kind of getting worse symptoms, and it came up on an MRI that I was getting regularly. And so at that point, then the doctor said, I think we should do surgery, because this is going to just keep bleeding again. And so we did. Sage was almost 1 at the time. I went to Johns Hopkins. The director of vascular neurosurgery at Johns Hopkins was my doctor, and she is amazing. And she did the surgery. It took 2 surgeries. The first one was 10 hours, and then the second one was 4 hours.
Wow.
Yeah. And my whole family got COVID in between, so that was...
Oh, my goodness.
That was...
Of course.
Yeah, it was, yeah. But
wow.
We're all here, and it's awesome. And, yeah. They got everything, and now basically it's like I'm a normal person.
You're good to go.
Yeah. And so it's just recovering from the damage that was done in the bleeds and the surgery. But,
yeah.
And you're jumping again.
And I'm jumping again. Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
What's your current team like?
They're awesome. Yeah. So this year is the first year I'm actually, like, up until this spring, I had done 2 jumps. I'd done a tandem and I had done 1 solo, and that was it. And I'd done a little bit of time flying in the tunnel. The actual flying isn't bad. It's like having a lot of people around, being at like a boogie, like being at Invasion is Summerfest. Summerfest. It's like tough for me. Summerfest was a little better because I think maybe it was a months had gone by, and also like Sky of Chicago is more open. Like you can stand on the outskirts of Sky of Chicago and look at Summerfest, whereas Invasion you can't really do that. But anyway, so it's that kind of stuff that's tough for me. So organizing or like running a team, that doesn't sound comfortable to me. But anyway, this team, it's me and Steve and Christy and Bob Compton and Kevin Nafsker, and it's just so much fun. We've had 3 training camps so far. I just love it. They're all coming back. We're going to train Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday before Nationals, and then Nationals next week. And
cool. So how come when you talked about Nationals, why did you smile so much? Tell me about that.
It's like
this huge smile come over your face. What is that?
Yeah, it's
No, tell us, because I've never been to Nationals, and I'm sure a lot of the people that listen to the podcast.
You've never been to Nationals?
No. So tell us about it. Like I've never been there. What? Yeah, you had a huge smile. What is that?
I mean, I think if you're training and competing, it's like there's Nationals and then there's a World Meet. Like it's what you're training. It's what you're doing all year. All your effort all year is what you're putting towards. And for me, and I think a lot of people for JRuss too, both, just on your own team, but then on all the teams you're training, they're also, everything I'm working for and personally and with my teams is all towards our performance at Nationals. So it definitely has that like Christmas time quality for it, and I feel like the Nationals I've been most proud of, and what I am most proud of, is when it's a place to showcase all the work you've done all year. It's like everything you've done is all in this little envelope, and then you get to open it up at Nationals and pull it out and see how it works. I know it doesn't quite. I mean, you do have some agency over your performance, but most of what happens at Nationals is all the work you put in. And
that's cool. JRuss, do you resonate with that sentiment?
Absolutely.
The way that she phrased it?
Yeah. I mean, each year is different in the what you can do, what your teammates can do, the time you can dedicate, the resources from your life. Each year is a little bit different, but Nationals just represents the time where whatever it was, those training days are over, and you're going to put your best foot forward, hopefully. And especially when VFS for me is a really small discipline. There's not as many people typically that can dedicate the time that we dedicate to it. FS is a much more developed discipline. There's going to be 75 FS teams at Nationals this year, probably 25 or 30 in each category. And man, it's super, super competitive. And for those guys, it's the same. I think that especially for the top teams, and I know Jeanette's team this year is a little bit more relaxed. They're not necessarily shooting for the gold this year, but in the past, it's been the kind of meet, I think, where if you train hard and everybody on your team fires on all cylinders and you put your best foot forward on an FS meet, maybe you podium, maybe. And that's if everything goes really, really well. And man, I was lucky enough in 2019 to be around for Jeanette's team winning the U.S. Nationals for the first time that I can remember. And like there's tears coming to my eyes because I was standing out in the crowd with LJ, who's their former teammate, Andrew, it's his wife. And I don't know who was screaming louder, if it was me or her or the people up on stage. Rook heard that they won and flew the King Air down to North Carolina to try to get him to hold up the award ceremony so he could make it. He flew in and landed. And the champagne got in all their eyes and burned the hell out of their eyes. But yeah, Nationals is just this super cool event, I think, where the people who have dedicated time to being better at their discipline all get together. And I know I've talked about it in the past, but definitely what resonates to me is that there's all these people that are passionate about the same thing that I'm passionate about. And their dedication and sacrifice and their willingness to commit kind of, it gives credence to my own passion and dedication, and we're all just nut jobs about the same thing, and we get together and slug it out, and for the most part it's pretty friendly, and yet we're competitive and adversarial, but it's still in a pretty good spirit. And the Nationals is amazing. Like Jeanette said, it's a stepping stone for bigger things on the international stage, so that's also really exciting. Is knowing who's gonna be the next U.S. team, who's gonna go represent us around the world.
So how many VFS? You said 75 or so FS. How many VFS teams do you think there'll be at Nationals?
In all 4 categories, if we got 10, I would be stoked.
10 total?
Yeah, maybe 12. It depends on the year. The biggest year we've ever had was the year we introduced the basically like the beginner class, and we were allowed to shoot video for those beginners as open class competitors. And there were 5 teams in the beginner class, which I think rounded out 15 total. That was a big year. But I mean, for a variety of reasons, VFS remains a very small discipline.
Okay, so real quick, that beginner class, how many points would they score in a round on average? What would be a normal?
The draw would be 3 to 4 points.
I just want to differentiate beginner class VFS, then your team that's going to win. Yeah. And then I also want to compare that to like the team that will win FS. I want to see the different numbers.
Well, an average in the beginner class might be 2 or 3 points
for VFS.
For VFS,
okay.
Yeah, I don't know about the intermediate class in FS. I
Intermediate is probably like if you're doing 12 to 14, you'll probably get in the podium. It depends year to year, but yeah.
But 2 to 3 points per round for a beginner class.
Yeah.
Vertical. And then the team that wins, what are they going to average in a round?
In vertical, I mean, we're regularly going to average somewhere north of 20, maybe 21 or 22, depending on the combinations that come out in the draw.
Okay. And
FS,
then the
highest levels.
Yeah, the team that's going to win the top open class, the best level that's going to win FS.
We're probably closer to 30.
Yeah, we did a 26-2 in 2019. I think, 27, 28, that'll get you for sure. Again, it depends. It depends on...
No, I know. I just want to I want to feel for myself, and then people listening to kind of get a feel for like just the differences in what's possible.
My former team has the world record for the highest average in a meet, which is 26.38 for VFS.
Wow. That's crazy.
That's crazy.
I don't think people understand how awesome that is.
Yeah. I mean, for all teams, if you start competing, the 20-point average is kind of the holy grail of we've broken into a different category.
For a 20-point average, but you guys are 26.
It's kind of like the 4-minute mile, I think.
Yeah.
Jeez. That's so cool. That's awesome.
Yeah. So let's back up a little bit. And in the team life, how would you describe your pathway from like, I know I like this, to I want to be on a team. I got my husband on the team.
Yeah.
We want to be the best.
Yeah.
How does all that go?
I mean, I think at first it was just, we joined Rhythm, and our first goal was just to be the best team from the Midwest. And so we figured out whatever that was. And then I think after that, we wanted to win advanced. The first year we went advanced, we came in third. We didn't actually get third because Laurent was on the team and he wasn't actually a citizen yet. So we were a guest team. So then after that, we were like, you know what, we want to do the highest score that anyone's ever done in advanced, and that will guarantee that we will win advanced. We were very like practical in that way. So then that was our goal. So then it just kind of kept going from there. Like, okay, we did that, and then well, what if we're the best? What if we could be the best in the country? What if we could be the best in the world? Like, and Steve and I joke, like, I'm always very much that way. Like, let's do that. And Steve's like, well, I just want to see how good I can get. I don't know if I could do that. We'll just see how good he's very, very much more personal like that. I'm just working on running the mile faster. We'll see how I can do. So that's kind of how it went. So in 2007 and was it 2008 that we came in first in advanced with Laurent, and then in 2009 we went into the open class. And at that point we knew it was going to be a long time to get from, we did a 16.9 in advanced to get to the top levels in open. At that point, Airspeed had already been kind of winning as a dynasty before we were even close to that, So it was, we knew it would take a while, but that's kind of cool. It makes it worth more if it's harder to do,
That is a great quote right there.
Yeah.
That is fantastic.
Yeah. I mean, I totally think so.
Say that again. What did you say? Say that again.
I just said it makes it worth more if it's harder to do, which
my wife teaches third grade. She will love to hear that. She tells her students all the time. She says, struggle comes before growth.
Yeah, for sure.
It makes it worth more if it's harder.
Yeah.
That is a great quote.
And the nationals that JRuss talks about, the 2019 that we won. So I think it was 2008 that we won advanced, and then it was 2019 when we finally won open. And every year from in between there, we were working hard towards it, and there were lots of setbacks and lots of growth through that, and it was tough. And I think that whole process is what made our win in 2019 so amazing for me, for other people that were there. If it was just easy, it wouldn't have meant so much, And so, we've already talked about our kind of fertility stuff that was going on there. I remember I'd already had a few failed kind of processes through that summer, and then we actually, Steve and I were in Colorado talking to fertility doctors, and then flew directly to Nationals 2019. We were just like, okay, we're gonna mentally just put all that aside, and we're going to just focus on this. Meanwhile, at the same time, so that was 2019. In 2018, Doug, I don't know if you had my teammate. Have you had Doug on?
Had Doug on.
Okay.
Yeah, Doug. We had him on.
Which
he's kind of a soulless, ginger-looking dude. we had him on months ago, last year sometime.
Yeah.
Wait, what's Doug's last name?
Barron.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Doug is awesome. Pretty serious. Yeah.
That's only on the very outside chance that he's going to listen to this.
No, he won't. There's only two people that listen to the show.
Yeah. So he had a pretty serious accident in 2019. And it was at the point where we're like, we don't really know what's going to happen. 2018, sorry. Yeah. 2018, April of 2018. And so 2019, he was coming back, but he was also, I don't think we did 200 training jumps that year. It was like the slowest training year we'd ever done, because we were just, I was going through fertility stuff. Steve and Andrew were both training 8-way. Doug was still coming back from, a really, really bad injury. So by the time we got to nationals, when we got there, like, we'd been performing at a certain level. Our goal that year was just to get back to where we were before the accident. Like, we were 2017 nationals, we had gone back and forth for first place, and we had lost pretty handily by the end. But in the first few rounds, we were in it. So we felt like, man, we could do this. We just need to keep working hard, and we're as close as we've ever been. And so we were training really hard and working really hard and really excited about it. And then Doug got hurt. And then, so when he came back, our goal was just to get back to that level. Like, we weren't really even like, we didn't know how that was going to put us with everything else going on in the world, but just that was what we were aiming for. And as a team at that point, we'd been together so long, and we knew each other, and we'd been through all these struggles together, and we got to nationals, and we had like, I don't know, a week at nationals that we were jumping together, and all of a sudden we were performing at that level again, and it just felt great. And so, like, I mean, not to minimize what ended up happening at that nationals, but it was great just to be there and have attained that goal with our team at that point. Like, here we are, we're all actually here, we're all jumping, we're doing this at the level, you know, we've met our goal, and we just, you know, it just felt so grateful to be there with my team, you know, and then the meet started, and it was back and forth again, and we were just like, this is awesome. You know, it was just, it was so much fun.
So good.
Yeah. And then, so, you know, I guess if you haven't been to nationals, I don't know how much of this you know, but we went back and forth all day the first day, and then the second day we went back and forth all day, and we were up going into round 10 by 1 point, and then they actually got us, so we were tied after round 10. And so if you're tied, you do a jump off round, which hadn't happened since 2016, I think.
Oh gosh, I don't know.
It was the year.
Oh, wow.
It happened the year before my first time at nationals. So no, it wasn't 2016. It was, because my first nationals was 2006. So it would have been 2005. That was the fire.
That was
yes.
the Land Fire
and
the Golden Knights.
Yes, that was
and
the last
in Paris Valley.
Yeah,
Paris Valley, and that was epic.
Yeah,
like you're playing the Eminem. What would you do if you only had one chance?
Yeah,
and the teams walk out through the crowd. It's so Hollywood, California, but it was super cool.
And it was an all random round, so it was really fast.
Super fast. Yeah.
So yeah, it was 2005 was the previous time that a jump off had happened for round 10. I mean, it's like what an amazing thing that I got to be a part of that. You know what I mean? And so
wait, how does a jump off work? What does that mean?
Yeah, so everybody, I mean, so all these, like JRuss talked, I think there were like 60, 65 teams at the time. They're all done with their meet. So all these people are done, and they're just waiting to see the results. And the top two teams, whichever one wins, is going to be the U.S. team to go to the world meet. At that point, they thought the world meet would be in 2020. It wasn't, for reasons we all know now.
Sure.
But so whichever team wins is going to be the U.S. team. And everybody's on the ground, and then now those teams prepare this round 11 that's been predetermined, and then we get on the plane and go up and do it, and then we come down, and then they judge it, and everybody's there watching. I mean, what a cool thing
awesome.
to be a part of, isn't it? Yeah.
So who won? I got to know who won.
Yeah, so we won.
That is so cool.
So we went up, and
do you remember the scores?
Huh?
Do you remember the scores?
Yeah, so we both got to the 22nd point, and we got one bust and they got two, I think. It was I mean, we both got to the same, and then it was busted. It was 1 point difference. And so what happens is if you don't, the judges look at it, and you're supposed to all be on grips at the same time and all off at the same time. And if you don't do something exactly right, it's called a bust, and they'll take a point away.
Sure.
So when we get down, I can see, okay, we got to the 22nd point, and then you just hope that the judges look at it, and you might know, like, yeah, there's something that's a little bit not clean there, or you might know, it's all totally clean, I believe we're going to get 22, but you don't really know until the judges look at it. So you watch it, and you watch ours, and you see that they busted us one, and then you watch theirs, and you see they've got to the same point, and the judges are looking at it, and then they're looking at it again, and looking at it again, and just your heart is like pounding. I remember when it came up, and like it came up, and they had 1 point less than us. I felt like there was a moment where I felt like math didn't work for me. I was like, that means we won, right? Like, is that
you couldn't figure it out?
I was like, yeah. We did better, right? This is,
and who was that? Which team was that y'all?
It was Airspeed.
Oh my goodness, dude.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. All right. I mean, is it accurate to say that, like, I mean, because you mentioned a minute ago, Airspeed, that is somewhat of a dynasty. I mean, beat,
absolutely it was.
I mean, to beat Arizona Airspeed, that's a thing in itself, right? I mean, is that right?
Yeah, absolutely. The last time they didn't win was 2005, when there was that jump off between Fire and the Knights, and then every year after that they won four-way. I mean, it was, my every nationals I went to until 2019, they had won, and then we beat them.
That's
jump off route by
crazy.
1 point.
And like, I got to add this. Jeanette never would, so I have to add it. Is that over that 10 or 11 years, Airspeed kind of used Rhythm as like the farm team. And so as they got better, then Airspeed would contact some of their teammates and say, hey, do you want to join our team? And so they'd lose a couple teammates and they'd go to Airspeed. And then these guys would, Steve and Jeanette would pick up new teammates and start training them. And Airspeed approached Doug and Andrew and they said, no, we're staying with Rhythm. And they won.
Wow.
Like, man, I'm still going to tear up. Like, I, watching that from the sidelines, knowing these guys, being in Sky Chicago the last 10 years, watching how hard they're training, how hard they're working, a couple of those times where their teammates decided to go somewhere else and all that work that they put into that individual went to another team. And I don't want to speak for anybody. If it was me, that would be frustrating. But when we had Steve on, he was very diplomatic about it.
He was very diplomatic.
Very diplomatic. But like to stand in the crowd and understand all of the backstory, or, not all of it, obviously, but the difficulties they're going through with the pregnancy stuff and the teammate stuff. And Doug had a crushingly bad accident the year before. And like, just to pull all that together, I can tell you that I have never been even 50% that excited about my own win at an international competition. I was over the moon. It was fantastic. And I want to shout out to Elliot Bird, who shot video for them, who didn't have a single camera bust. No. He shot a perfect meet.
Wait, what does that mean? Tell us what that means.
Yeah. Well, you go.
Well, so I was talking about how, like, you get these points and you have to show them. And if something's not quite right, they can take it away. It has to be on video. Like, you have to be able to see all of the grips at the same time on video and everybody off at the same time on video. So if the video guy just happens to be not in the right spot, or if the team, if we come off the plane and we get flat, or we don't kind of present it well, or sometimes we can get flat and the video guy can kind of save the day and get over it, which Elliot certainly has done many times for us. If it doesn't show, you will get a bust, and they call that a video bust.
Oh man! So it's not a bust because you technically weren't. It's just because they can't verify.
Can't see it. Yeah, it's your job as a team, including the video guide, to show it to the judges.
Wow.
Yeah.
How common are video busts?
Very.
Yeah.
He didn't have one whole meet.
That is very rare. That's very, very rare. And when you tie and win by 1 point, I mean, every point matters.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wait, I'm sorry. Say the video guy's name again.
Elliot Bird.
Elliot, dude.
Yeah, he's
an incredible video.
I think that he and Lauren are now based at Sky Midwest. Is that right?
Yeah.
But they used to be at Paraclete for a long time.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember stories from when I was first skydiving about meets that were tight, and there was one where the camera flyer had a bust in the last round and quit skydiving.
Oh,
like it, because there's a lot of pressure on the teams. Like when you want to perform at that level and you don't do your best, and it sadly, for us, I mean, and I think for these guys too, when we have a meet, we acknowledge, look, everybody's going to have their moment. Like maybe it's round 1 or maybe it's round 10, and maybe the like you just kind of got to roll with the punches when you're at the meet, because everybody has their moment. And if you're going to get upset about it, you're going to have your moment next, I guarantee it. And so, but like the unicorn of a camera flyer shooting a perfect meet is real rare.
Wow.
And that, like, it was like the stars aligned and everything came together and it worked. And it was wonderful.
Yeah.
That's so cool. See, we don't know that stuff, man. I don't know that. That's so cool.
Oh, it was so much fun. Yeah.
I'm like all excited and giddy just thinking about it.
Yeah. And then Steve, I don't know if he told you this, but after that, he and Andrew were on an 8-way team, and they won 8-way against the Golden Knights, who also had a bit of their own dynasty in 8-way for sure.
Dude,
it's pretty cool. And I think, and he won 4, 8, 10, and 16, which I think is the only time somebody's ever done that.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Did he win the overall?
He did.
Thing?
Yeah, he did. But overall, he only counts for 3. So other people won it too. I think I won it that year, but he actually.
Wait a minute. You're saying it in the same year?
Yeah. In the same, like the next day. Like we won 4-way, and the next day he went and did 8-way.
And won.
Against another dynasty.
Against the Golden Knights. Yeah.
And then won 16-way?
Yeah, and then they did 16 and 10, and he won that too. Yeah. Yeah,
Wow.
he won it all that year.
And so they award some people like the overall competitor. Usually the person who wins the most events or does the best in the most events, and Steve won it that year.
So Steve is like the Michael Phelps of skydiving.
Yeah,
I mean,
I think we can call him that since he's not here.
kind of, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's.
Can we backtrack to the beginning, or he's like, no, I don't want that to all the time.
Yeah.
No, I'm not interested. I don't want to
Yeah.
do solo for sure.
Yeah.
What? He didn't even want to jump, and now he's like Michael Phelps. Are you kidding me?
Yeah. I knew he would like it once he got into it, but you know.
That's cool. That's super cool.
Yeah.
Wow, what a great story. That's fun.
So good. And then let's see, you weren't actually able to compete at the World Meet.
Yeah. So I'm actually glad I made that decision because that was right before we went to that nationals was when Steve and I decided we'd been through a few failed rounds of IVF, and we often with everything with the team, or we will say to ourselves, okay, like if there was no limits, what would we do? And then we see, okay, how close can we get to that? You know? And so my doctor was in Florida and I was in Chicago. I was already traveling a bunch. So I was like, man, and I was already, my insurance did not cover fertility treatments, so I'm already get to pick where I'm going. And I was like, why don't I just go to the best clinic and the best doctor I could go to, And so I figured out who that was. And then I was like, can we do this? And so we started looking at it, and then we decided I was going to do that. And so that's where we were right before nationals, and we were starting to make those plans. And then after nationals, I was kind of pursuing both. I was like, man, we've won nationals. Now we've got a year. At that time, we thought a year to train for the World Meet that was going to be in Russia in summer of 2020. And I was starting to go through these IVF treatments out in Colorado, and they weren't working, but I was still, putting my money in and my time in, and I got to a point where I was like, man, to win a World Meet, I need to give everything to this team. And it's kind of looking like in order to get pregnant, I'm going to need to give everything. And it's not fair to both groups. I just couldn't do both. And it was really hard. It was a hard decision. And I remember feeling really bad and feeling like I'd let my team down. But I just felt like when I looked back at it, what would I regret the most? And it would be putting off, maybe I'd already waited too long and maybe it was too late, but I just felt like and we'd even thought that was even kind of one question we had when we'd switched over to Colorado was like, if we get to the end of this and it doesn't work, what will we regret the least? Like what we say, well, at least we tried everything we could. So then that was in December of 2019. I stepped back from the team. And so then they got Drew Starr, who was an Army Golden Knight, and they started training with him. And then COVID happened, and the World Meet got pushed back a year, and Drew couldn't commit for then. So then they picked up Christy Frickin from California. I don't know if you guys have had her.
No,
we haven't.
She's awesome too.
Yeah, your former teammate.
Yeah. So she was on the team previously, and then they got her back on, and so they trained with her and ended up going to the World Meet in 2021 in Russia, in Siberia, Russia.
So, okay, how does that work? You guys won nationals 2019. So that means you get to go compete at Worlds.
Yeah.
But that got postponed because of COVID, right?
Yeah.
So the same people. You can switch up the team if you have to, or if you need. How does that work?
It has to be a certain percentage. I think you can change one or two teammates.
Okay.
50%.
Is it 50%?
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. As long as 50% or more is still the same team.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So yeah. And that's how it was. And my plan was actually always to go and be an alternate for the team. I was going to be on it, but then that also COVID came, and then only the team, I was going to go, but my parents were going to go with me so the World Meet was in August. Sage was born in June. So I was like, okay, I'm going to go with a 2-month-old baby to Siberia, Russia, which seems kind of crazy, but it's my team is going to the World Meet. I have to go. So my parents were going to go with me and help me out. But then COVID happened. They couldn't go. Then I had a brain bleed, and I was just like, I can't, it felt like too much to too much on Steve and too much on the team and too much on me. So I didn't.
So but Steve and the team still went.
They still all went. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
And they came in second.
They did?
Yeah.
That's cool. Wow.
And Andrew,
They won anyway.
no, they didn't compete in the world.
Oh, okay, sorry.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, they had to decide. So even though they got this, they also won 8-way at nationals. So that 8-way team got to go to the world meet, but they had to choose. The 8-way team wanted them to choose between one team, or they didn't want them to train on both teams at the same time. So both Andrew and Steve chose to go with the 4-way team instead of the 8-way team.
Oh, okay. They could only compete on one or the other.
Well, I mean, that was what the 8-way wanted.
Yeah. No, I mean they wanted people to fully commit. That's understandable.
Exactly. Yeah. It wasn't a rule from the world meet or anything like that.
Right. No. It was the team just saying, "Hey, look, we really want to win worlds. Please commit 100% or not at all."
Yeah.
That's understandable.
Totally understandable. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's so cool.
Yeah.
Well, so this is a question that I think we've asked quite a few people on the podcast that are, that compete, but basically, and you've kind of hinted at it a little bit, but just explicitly asking the question, what's the value of competing and team and training and all that stuff? Like, why?
Yeah.
Why put yourself through all that stuff?
Yeah, I think it gives you a goal and a thing to work towards, and it makes you such a better skydiver than if you didn't do it. I think for sure if I didn't have this thing I was working towards, I don't think I would be skydiving still. I definitely wouldn't have. I think I have about 11,000 jumps now, almost. I would not have anywhere near that. Like now that I'm not competing and competing professionally and working towards a goal, I definitely don't have the same drive to get better. And I do want to get better and I do want to work on it, but it's just easy to I let other things become important too,
Yeah.
So I think, and also just, there's something like, at least this was very important for us always as Rhythm, is that you're spending so much time with your teammates. We really wanted to enjoy that experience and enjoy and have somebody that's going to support you getting better and enjoy the process of them getting better. And we just felt like, if all 4 of us or all 5 of us were really supporting each other in that way, it would just be so much more fun, and we'd benefit more that way,
Mm-hmm.
And so when that's actually happening, you just, it's this, I don't know, it's this magical thing. It's really cool, and like we were talking about Doug, and he's joking with Doug, being teammates with Doug and Andrew for years. It's like a really, really close relationship. I mean, it's hard to, I don't know. It's really great to share something with somebody like that. It's just, it's really, really cool. Yeah.
What makes a really good teammate?
We talk about this every time we would recruit. We talk about this, what makes a good teammate. And man, skill is doesn't come to mind first at all. So we would talk about on the personality level, it's got to be somebody that you're happy to spend time with, that you enjoy being with. But then on a goal setting level, it's somebody that is open-minded, is open to feedback, is easy to work with. But it's more than that, because somebody could just be open to feedback, but if they're really negative all the time, then they may not get better as quickly too. So I want somebody that's really good at improving, and you can be good at improving both by recognizing what you need to improve on, but also recognizing what you're good at and how to get better at that thing.
Mm-hmm.
People that are I always find it interesting, you can see oh, well, I could do that if only this would happen, or if only this would happen. And anybody you talk to, any athlete or any team, any performer, they go through troubles. They have, in our case, you have teammates leave, you have teammates get hurt, you have oldest stuff, and your ability to get better and become the better team is your ability to get through that, And so I want a teammate that isn't just like, oh, I want to do this when the sun's shining and nobody's hurt and I like you guys. You need somebody that's like, I'm going to do this even when, I'm sick and it's raining and I don't feel good and somebody just left and we have to start over. Like you need that. So I feel like there's a personality standpoint of like, I want to at least enjoy you and enjoy your journey and have you enjoy care about you enjoying my journey. And then I also want to believe that you're I think a growth mindset is a very cliche thing to talk about, but like you really embody that. Like you believe that, not just believe you can get better, but you have the tools and you're willing to do that and know how to do that and have the resources to do that.
Yeah. That's really, so a couple of things that made me think of. Number one, you said a lot of the things that JRuss has said when I ask him similar questions, especially that thing like, oh, skill. I don't care about skill.
Yeah, it'll come.
But it also, like, hearing you say, I don't know, for some reason, the way that you were phrasing some of those things made me think about my wife and the team of family and mom and dad and, parents and family and husband and wife and like sharing life together and trying to win at life, Like,
absolutely.
Like that really made me think about my wife and how she is just rain or shine, good times, bad times. Like she's trying to make it work. She's going to be there and help me out. Now, I mean, we get in fights, we have issues, we have problems. Like, somebody doesn't perform, just like on a skydive, somebody screws up the exit,
For sure.
I've screwed up the exits on plenty of marital issues, and she has too. But then the other thing that made me think about is this guy, Patrick Lencioni. Have you ever, is that name? I may have mentioned him, JRuss. Patrick Lencioni. He's really, really big on like organizational health and business health and team dynamics. But that one of the things that, and I've read a few of his different books and watched a few podcasts and stuff like that. But one of the things he says is, I mean, very similar to what you say. He's like, when you're looking for someone for your business, for your team to join your team in your business, he's like, the last thing you need to worry about is, can they do the job? He's like, you can teach most people how to do whatever you want, teach them how to do it. It doesn't matter. You can teach them, but are they a good fit for your team? I mean, a lot of the things that you were saying, like personality, do you like being with them? Do they have the same mindset, the same values, the same vision, the same mission? Are they trying to spend their life doing the same things that you're trying to spend your life doing? And if that's the case, then okay, skills, we got that covered. That's fine. We'll figure that out. And so I find myself even with Crave, with this business and this thing that I'm trying to do to bless the skydiving community. Like I find myself doing that too, like connecting with people. And I just think they're so awesome. And then I'm like, how can I figure out how to get this person to be a part of Crave and what we're doing? Like, I don't care what they can or can't do. They're so cool. They're such good people. I want them to be a part of, so that's what it made me think of.
That's sweet.
So what's going on now?
What's going on now with me? Well, I mean, I think that right now I'm skydiving on this team. I've got Sage. I've got my recovery. We're actually in the process of moving a little bit north. By a little bit, I mean like 90 miles north, not that far, to be near family and stuff. So for me, I'm just kind of figuring out what my balance is for life. I have all these things I really like doing. I also am more and more aware of my limitations because I have a 3-year-old, also my brain stuff. So it's kind of what's going on with my life right now. I think that I feel very fortunate that I have Steve, and he is pushing, like he's the one that put together this team. As much as I love skydiving, I don't think I would be doing as much as I am if it wasn't for him being like, okay, you tell me what you can do and I will make that happen. If it was just on my own, I wouldn't be able to do that.
You guys kind of just traveling a little bit.
We're traveling. Yeah. Just kind of, figuring out what's important to us, which is I think skydiving and family right now. So family being Sage, and getting to enjoy her and take her places, and then be with family and friends, and I mean it's I love being with family, and I love sharing with Sage, and then I also just like and you're talking about it too, just the people that you meet in the sport. I feel very fortunate that because Steve is still in it and still pushing me to do it, I still get to spend all this time with all these people that I over the last decade have gotten to know and enjoy, and that's really cool too. Yeah, so that's kind of what's going on with me right now.
Cool. Well, an hour and 10 minutes. We're doing great.
Yeah. I was just going to say, I really like what you said about a marriage, and it being the stuff I was saying being part of that. And I feel like Steve and I are better teammates because of our marriage, and our marriage is better because of our experience as teammates. I mean, I'm sure JRuss understands. I think it's a gift to be able to be on a team with your significant other. It's
hard sometimes, but totally worthwhile.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, very cool.
Maybe Chris, you need to encourage your wife to use your dead tunnel time so that she can
Dude,
they don't have that anymore.
Get her on a team.
Dude, I have tried. I've gotten her in the tunnel like twice, maybe 3 times. I don't know, man. I need you come down here and get her in the tunnel, JRuss. Maybe that's what I need to do.
Listen, man, if you're not getting it done, I don't think I'm going to be able to do it.
Dude. Or, okay, Steph. Maybe Steph could get her in.
Okay. Try the woman angle. I don't
know. No, you know what she says? She's like, I just don't like everybody looking at me. I don't want everybody watching me.
Yeah.
I'm like, Tanya, none of these people care about you. They're not watching you. They don't care.
Yeah. I understand.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah. Well, we wrap it up?
Yeah. No, that was really, thank you so much for joining us. Yeah. Really, really nice.
Thanks for
really cool.
Yeah. Awesome. Thank you for doing what you're doing. I think it's really cool.
Yeah. Well, yeah, we're trying.
Yeah.
I do just have to add, because I know you'll find this funny. Do you remember I said that a high school friend watched the episode?
Yeah.
So he's watched a few now. He just messaged me today or yesterday saying that he thought it was super funny that right after I talked about him, you randomly asked me what my middle name was. And he was the guy that called me Mike in high school. He was the only guy who did it. And he wrote me a message. He's like, oh, that's hilarious that on your September 3rd episode, he randomly asked you your middle name. And then like he talked about some other stuff from high school. It's just that I mean, as far as I know, Dave has no affiliation to skydiving whatsoever. But he's still watching the cast. So I'm gonna give a shout out one more time to him. But
that's awesome. I love it. That's cool.
Well, cool. So thanks everybody for joining us. We definitely had a wonderful hour of hearing part of the story of Jeanette Lefkowitz and Rhythm. So thanks for joining us.
Yeah.
Cool. And that'll be all. I think we need to talk a little bit about Crave. Still doing? Is it still $15 a month?
Yep.
Still $15 a month and a wealth of knowledge. Is Pete Allen's course out?
It's out. It's live. Yep. We've gotten a lot of good feedback from it.
Yep. I'm guessing that Jeanette's very familiar with Pete.
Yeah. It's just such a great person.
Yeah, he really is. He's such a neat guy.
Yeah.
How many courses total are out now?
We have eight courses.
Okay, so that would, if our course is representative, I think ours was maybe 5 or 6 hours of time. I'd have to go back and look, but that's potentially 40 hours of experts in the skydiving community talking about the things that you would like to know about skydiving. So
yeah, I mean, it's really, I mean, there's so much good content. I mean, the best skydivers in the world, the most experienced. I mean, we're talking about actually millions and millions of dollars worth of knowledge. No, I mean, like I added up how many skydives, all of the instructors, all of you guys together. It's an insane amount of skydives and time and energy and effort and money and gear and like that we all have access to now, like for posterity. I mean, really, this is something for posterity. We're helping everyone. I think I think it's awesome.
I do too. That's really cool. That's at cravetofly.com.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. So get out there, skydive with friends, enjoy the sport that we all love, and do more and be better.
There you go.
Thanks, you guys.
Thank you guys.
See you next
Jeanette,
week.
Thank you so much. That was fun.
Thank you.
All right. Bye, y'all.